Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 126. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at Rethink Coaching. And as always, I just want to take a minute and thank you for sharing your time with me. Time truly is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to invest and share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. So thank you so much for being here. This episode is about viewing clarity as the new competitive advantage. And it dovetails really beautifully with episode number 125, where we talked about the old model of more not really working any longer and a different way of doing things. So these two episodes, it's really important that you take a listen to both. And you may have to take a listen a couple of times because it's a different concept to absorb, breaking the mold of what we've been taught or what maybe our perceived values have been around what it looks like to be successful. So clarity, to me, is one of the most important things ever. And your brain also needs clarity. So for me, right now, I'm working on a big project. As you all know, I'm in the final stages of writing a book and edits are done and all that fun stuff. Yet there's different things that are coming up that are creating a bit of uncertainty for me, which is clouding my clarity. And when I find that out, I find myself really wanting to shut down and retreat a little bit. And that really is not the best thing to do. However, it's important to hit the pause button until you do find clarity. So I've learned that over the years when I'm feeling uncertain or lacking clarity, I stop for a moment and figure out what I need to do to create the clarity that's going to allow me to move forward at a different pace or a different level. And so many of us have been conditioned to just doing more. We're not clear as to why we're doing it, but it worked for somebody else or it's the definition. So let's just hurry up and go. That we are moving forward at a really fast pace without clarity. It's like moving forward with a blindfold on, hoping you don't run into the wall or hoping you don't step out into a busy street or crash the car. And it is what and how a lot of us as leaders, entrepreneurs, salespeople are entering the world without clarity. So clarity, I just want you to think about, is the new competitive advantage. Think about that. If you're absolutely clear and your competition is not, the chances of you having greater success have gone up versus them running amok. So take that into consideration. Number one, it goes back to what I talked about in the last episode is, we've borrowed the definition of success from others. I don't ever recall in all of my education, schooling, time as an employee, a leader, a corporate executive, entrepreneur, where I really took a moment to define what my success was. In fact, I just took on what other people had viewed as successful. So what did that look like in my corporate roles? What does it look like in my entrepreneurial role according to this other rule book, this book that's out there, that's not mine? And many times the definition of success is gifted to you through family. Nothing wrong with that, culture, industry, and expectations. Yet if they're not yours, it's hard to be successful. It's hard to live in somebody else's model. I know for me, with my family, love my mom and dad to death. And their definition of success was very different than mine. It wasn't quite as big of a view of what you could succeed and do financially. It was, for them, success meant we had a house, we had food on the table, we were able to pay cash for things, and we had enough. That was their definition of success. And for a long time, I lived by that. And as my career grew and I started making more than enough, I leaned into culture or my industry's definition of success because it no longer fit my parents. Again, my parents' definition of success was fairly simple. That's how they were programmed as kids growing up, and they inherited their definition of success from their parents. So I'm kind of one of those people that likes to break patterns, and I broke that pattern, yet I picked up the industry's definition of success. I never once stopped and said, okay, My parents' definition of success is great, and I'm no longer living it. What is my definition of success? I immediately went to my leadership and said, what's it going to take for me to be successful? Same thing when I became a real estate agent. I went to my broker. What's it going to take for me to be successful? And they outlined the definition of success for me. It wasn't until I paused and got clear and had clarity on what my definition of success was that allowed me to actually achieve greater things. I achieved bigger production. I achieved bigger income levels. I achieved bigger things in life once I leaned into what my definition of success was. So if you haven't done that, if you've just leaned into somebody else's definition of success in your industry, in your career, in your family, I'm inviting you to actually take a moment and look at what that means to you. It's really important, probably the most important first step for you to take. Number two, we tend to experience things when we talk about clarity, right? Noise versus signal. And I want you to think about that. Noise versus signal. Signal is really the few actions, choices, relationships, and priorities that truly move the needle towards success or towards your ultimate goals. Noise is just everything else. It's all the stuff that looks productive, sounds important, feels urgent, but doesn't materially contribute to what actually matters. So in our current world, I want you to think about noise. Information that we get is infinite. Opportunities presented to us or that are out in the world seem endless, and demands are constant. Yet here's the truth. Our attention is finite. We only have so much of it to give to something. Our energy is finite and our time is finite. So success is no longer about adding more. It's about filtering to better. Some real world examples of noise and guilty as charged, checking emails compulsively, attending meetings that could have been a text or an email that you end up leaving with no decisions. That's noise. Pursuing goals because your peers are. Well, if they're doing it, I need to do it, right? Because I want to be successful and they look successful. So I'm just going to go do what they're doing. Consuming endless content. I have watched this happen with really brilliant people, really amazing entrepreneurs, that they get stuck in this consumption phase of getting ready to go. And they're just consuming information that's coming their way. I always joke around and say, Big Brother's listening. Yet it's amazing when I have a conversation about something I want to do, how much more of the content that applies to that topic shows up in my news feeds, shows up in my social media feeds. And it's tempting to go absorb all that content. And that drives us when we're distracted with noise to say yes to things that really aren't the right opportunities, but feel like it. Signal, on the other hand, this is really important. I really want you to hear this. Signal is deep work on high impact tasks. All right. This is where identifying what the right more for you to do is critical. This is that allows us to get out of this delusion of focus and allows us to spend time and do deep work, deep dive on the tasks that really matter. Allows us to have more meaningful conversations because we're not distracted, deluded. It allows us to make more strategic decisions. If you're focused in doing a deep dive in a specific task or area, chances are you're going to know it pretty well, and it's going to be easy to make a decision that supports you moving forward or not, versus having just skimmed over the information and saying yes to it because you saw somebody else do it, so why not? And Signal also helps us have boundaries. Saying no to something because it's not in alignment with the key activities that you know you should be doing to get to success. So noise versus signal is really important. Noise creates motion, yet signal creates progress. So really pay attention to, am I in a phase of noise or signal? Signal is clarity. Noise is distraction. It's that simple. Noise is going to create motion, and it's going to distract you into doing more of maybe the wrong more, where signal is going to help you focus on the right activities that are going to lend to your progress. The number 3 thing to consider when you're looking to gain clarity so you can have this competitive advantage out in the world and in your life is there's a cost, a hidden cost of misaligned more. You are possibly pursuing goals that aren't aligned with your values. This is where, when we say more to the wrong thing for the sake of thinking we're going to get more or more money or a different job or promotion or whatever it is, and we've said yes, and it's misaligned with our values, that's a huge hidden cost. It's going to create burnout. It's going to create frustration. It's going to create lack of joy. It's going to have you feeling very disconnected, and it's going to feel heavy. That success may happen, yet it's not going to feel light and joyful. It's going to feel heavy. There's going to be some external wins, but there's going to be a huge internal disconnect when you are not aligned with your values and you are out of alignment because you're not clear on what your definition of success is or what this should look like for you. To me, the cost of being misaligned through lack of clarity is one of the most dangerous things we can do. So I give this example often. In my hotel career, and I've always been this way, my strongest suit is sales. I excel at sales. I started off making sales over the phone. I ended up going into a hotel making sales in person, promoted up the ranks to director, area sales. And then I got diluted with the definition of success meant I had to do operations, meaning, front desk, those things in the hotel that weren't sales related. They dealt with the daily operations to keep the hotel functional. Did I like operations? No. Did I do it? Yes. Was I successful? Yeah, according to somebody else's definition of success. But my internal values were out of alignment. I didn't get out of bed with a pep in my step to go be a general manager. I was like, oh gosh, here we go. And it took me a minute to get those goals realigned in the operations lane, really taking things in operations through the lens of sales, which changed things. But I allowed others, the industry's definition of success, to mandate the decisions I made about the jobs I took. Had I stayed in sales in the industry, I don't know if I still would be there because that really is my passion, sales. So I love coaching entrepreneurs and salespeople. Love it. So just make sure you're aligned. For the years that I was misaligned doing regional work, GM operation work, there was a very heavy feeling. Paychecks were coming in, bonuses were coming in, acknowledgement was coming in, yet it never felt light and joyful. Number 4 is clarity can be a performance multiplier. It's always amazes me when I'm coaching, when somebody new enters into my world and we have a strategy session and we start talking about things and we clear things up and get abundant clarity on what we should be doing, abundant clarity on what works for you versus what works for others. When we get that level of clarity, oftentimes the first question somebody will ask in order to step into this now is, so what should I do next? What else should I do? And I often will say, just go back and do what you're doing. But now that you have clarity, you're going to see different results. And it always happens that way. Clarity really is a performance multiplier. It's focused effort versus scattered. When you are crystal clear on what works for you and what you should be giving your attention to, you have focused effort versus scattered effort. Saying no, when you're clear, it's easier to say no. And no is a strategic decision. If it goes against the clarity that you have and it's going to cause confusion or it's going to cause scattered effort, it is absolutely and abundantly easier to say no and have that be a strategic decision. When you're clear and you have clarity, it removes friction. I experience friction nearly daily until I figured out how to make operations work for me because I wasn't clear on how to make that happen. I was just showing up to do the job. The thing I love about clarity being a performance multiplier is less effort generates greater effect, greater results. The number 5 thing I'm going to talk to you about when we have clarity is it really is your first act of subtraction. When you get clear on what works for you, when you get clear on what brings you joy, when you get clear on what is moving you towards your goals, when you have clarity about what adds value and joy in terms of an action, you can easily remove those things that are no longer fulfilling you and trust the process that in doing so, when you remove something that is no longer in alignment because you have clarity on what is important to you now, it will be your first step in subtraction, which leads to multiplication. I know this wasn't taught in my math class. This is me. And when you remove that stuff, it creates an immediate lift. I shared this in the last podcast. I've done several group coaching programs and I've done different things in my career. And at the end of the year, I really sat with the different programs that I was doing. And one of them, it became clear that it is not something that was adding value. I was doing it because it was somebody else's goal. I was doing it because it was helping them with their definition of success. And it was really out of alignment with the commitment I made to myself. And quite honestly, my commitment is, as I move forward, I'm only doing things that bring me joy and results. That's it. And so this was out of alignment. I made the decision to stop and pause the program and to look at a way, can we retool this in a way that is in alignment with my values, that is in alignment with the clarity I have around what I want to do in my career and life. And until I have that clarity, I'm having to stop. I'm having to remove it. And just in the short time that I've done that, 3 significant opportunities have presented themselves that I wouldn't have been able to say yes to because of this other commitment. The first act of subtraction you do, I promise you, will bring opportunity to you that you had no idea even existed. The emotional relief I have of letting go of that program and creating the space for amazing things to show up has been such a gift. And it's really just been through the gift of clarity. We drift away from that. I don't know the exact reason why. I just know that we do. If you talk to most entrepreneurs and successful people at some point on their journey, they have drifted away from clarity. They have surrendered to more. They have surrendered to doing things because of somebody else's definition. They have surrendered because they feel like if they give something up, they're going to lose their production, their results, their income, their sales, their success is going to go down. When honestly, it's the opposite. When you're clear and you have clarity and you do what matters, your success is endless and your joy returns. So think about what you could be doing for your first act of subtraction. I want you to think about less is not reduction, it's refinement. All right. So sometimes people think like you're asking me to do less. And if I do less, I'm going to make less money. I'm not going to be as successful. Other people are going to be more successful than me. And that's not the case. Less as clarity is not deprivation or it is not scarcity. A lot of times we equate if I do less, I'm going to have less, and I approach it from a scarcity mindset and it impacts. It's not. It's really about refining, clearing out the noise, clearing out the distractions that are keeping you from being in alignment and clear about the actual activities that will bring you success and clearing the space for the right things to show up. You have the space for what matters the most, which allows you to expand. So it's not just reduction. Like subtraction is not reducing, it's refinement. You're refining, fine-tuning those things that are going to allow you to have the greatest expansion. It's really about focusing on the right more. For me, like an example I always use for myself when I was in production and I was selling homes, even when I was in sales in the hotel world, I excelled at sales when I was in front of people. So sales for me over the phone just didn't work. When I set off on my real estate career, I decided that there were 3 ways I was going to grow my business: through my database, through doing open houses face-to-face, and through network events face-to-face. It's what I loved doing. I was crystal clear on that. And I was able to refine and master those 3 activities, which allowed my business to just skyrocket. Yet there were moments when I was distracted and I lost clarity, and I fell prey to the definition of somebody else's success of what it means to be a successful realtor broker. And I started going down that path, their path of success, and I started diluting everything I was doing. And my business went down, even though I was doing more. It was in this moment that I realized I needed to let that other stuff go. That might have worked for somebody else. It wasn't working for me. And that refinement of focusing on the right activities that I got results and I enjoyed doing. Why wouldn't you do more of that? You're getting results and you're enjoying it versus taking on an action that you don't enjoy just because somebody else is doing it. And that's their definition of success. It's kind of crazy. When I refined that moment, when I refined it down to my 3 key activities, I loved working. I loved selling houses. I loved growing my team. I loved leading my team. I enjoyed every element of it. And it's because I did refine my activities and I focused on the right more. That's the game changer. It's really just so incredibly simple, yet we overcomplicate it because we follow somebody else's definition of success. Well, I've reached this level and their definition of success, my broker, my team lead, my boss, my company, their definition of success is this. We get out of alignment, we lose clarity, and we lose traction. It's really, really not where we want to be. Clarity is truly your gateway to success. I want you to think about that. Subtraction precedes expansion. I know that doesn't make sense. Most people think to expand, I got to do more. I have to do more. And that's not the truth. It's refinement. Less over more is the pathway to success, which really means focus less on the wrong more and focus more on the right more. What would change for you if you removed one misaligned commitment this week? Just one this week. Think about what your week looks like and think about removing one thing that is no longer in alignment or is not your definition of success. What would happen? I promise you, if you spent some time in identifying something that you could remove, subtraction, and focus on refinement of the activities at work, you'll see results almost immediately because you've cleared the space, you're in alignment with your values, you're crystal clear on where you're headed, and your brain is clearer on what it needs to do and what it's going to do to achieve success. So let's break the mold, team, and let's look at clarity as a competitive advantage versus doing more. Let's look at clarity as an advantage and doing the right more as an advantage. Let's look at subtraction as a move towards expansion. As always, if you have any questions, if you need anything, you can always find me, Tony@rethinkcoaching.com. You can find me on all the social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, everything. I'm out there. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help you out. Until I see you again, clarity is the new competitive advantage. We'll talk to you soon. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.